Salutations, my dear Earthlings. Welcome to episode 2 of the Honeywoods. In the last episode, I discussed the upbringings of Daisy and William and how they first met. In this video, I will introduce you to 8 new characters. Since these characters were generated through a breeding function in Pixel Pets, and I did not create their designs, I decided to draw them. I also decided I might as well draw William and Daisy while I'm at it. But I found this to be lacking in interest, and I thought I could come up with something a bit more creative. So I've instead drawn an image out of smoke for each character. Well, they don't look like smoke at all, but pretend that they do, okay? I originally was going to call these images their individual essence. However, I've come to realize the definition of essence doesn't really suit the drawings I've done. Well, anyways, the first image represents William Honeywood. It is of a skull, because skulls are often used to symbolize evilness, I think. And William is indeed very evil. I couldn't really think of any other sort of symbols of evil. I don't really think of skulls as evil, but yeah, it's what I've gone with. In the center of the smoke is Big Ben, since he is from London. He works in London as well. The second image represents Daisy Brown, now Daisy Honeywood, William's wife. It is of a Chillin. It is said Chillin only bow to those who have a pure heart, in Harry Potter anyways. And I think that if a Chillin encountered Daisy, that it would bow to her, since she is very pure-hearted. I know in Harry Potter it didn't really work like that, but just roll with it, okay? This now brings us to the first new character, but before I introduce them, allow me to fill you in on what happened between last episode and the arrival of this character. Convincing Daisy's parents to let her permanently take residence with William was no easy task. Well, it kind of was for William, since he's really a smooth talker. He can convince people really easily. But anyways, he told them it allowed him to give her the proper care she needed, and that this was the only way for her to survive. Only by his hands, or paws rather, could ensure the survival of their sick little bunny. It was a difficult decision for them to make. It would mean they would never see her again. But they believed in what William said, and they trusted William to protect their bunny from harm's way. So they handed her over to him. He took her from the hospital to an isolated cabin near the shore of Ireland, where he kept her until he felt she recovered enough to safely make the journey back to Britain. Any onlookers who would spot the pair of a 23-year-old fox and an 8-year-old rabbit would simply assume they were father and daughter. Sort of unconventional, but father and daughter nonetheless. Or at least family, but they were wrong. During the boat ride, there was an unexpected storm that put fear into the passengers that they would not make it out alive, and worsened poor Daisy's condition. But the storm passed, and the boat safely docked in Britain. Daisy at this point was even more sick than when she was in the Irish hospital. Instead of taking Daisy to a hospital, or to William's modest apartment in London, he used his connection to secure a speedy purchase of a 2-story house in a secluded clearing in some woods not too far outside of London. His idea was to isolate Daisy, to make it near impossible for her to escape him. They took a hackney carriage for most of the distance to their new home, including a quick stop to get a week's worth of supplies. Eventually, they had to leave the horse and buggy and continue on foot through the forest to their new home, where William carried Daisy throughout. If you didn't watch the first episode, or didn't read my bio, it's, the story is set in the 1800s. I haven't really decided exactly when the 1800s, but the 1800s, so no cars. Anyways, when they arrived, Daisy didn't know it yet, but she would never again leave this place. After supplies ran out, William had to leave Daisy alone at the house to go back to London. Much to his annoyance, he waited an hour until someone came down the road that would be willing to take him to London. He soon purchased a horse that he could use from then on to go between the house and London. Eventually, Daisy made a full recovery. Once she did, William began working again and immediately set Daisy on cooking and cleaning. She already knew the basics from her previous home, but by living with William, she was able to discover her love for baking and gardening. At 12 years of age, because she couldn't discover her love for baking and gardening because she didn't really have the time in such a hectic household to experiment those kinds of things, and she also didn't have any sort of areas to garden in. But here, that's one good thing, I guess, if you want to try to find some good in it of living with William. She did find her love for baking and gardening. Anyways, at 12 years of age, Daisy reached sexual maturity. That is when William began to have sex with her. Beforehand, he had no interest in sex, but after having sex, he realized how good it was. And from then on, he would have sex every night with Daisy, even if she didn't want to. Shortly after he began having sex with her, she got pregnant. A month later, on a day in late summer, she would give birth to 4 kids. William had taken a week off of work to be there and to deliver the kids, so he was there when she began to have contractions. The first kid was a boy. William named his firstborn son William Jr. For him, I drew a seemingly normal rose, but it is not normal. There is a disease hidden within it. When he was a kid, he became attached to an infected rosebush behind the house. He would tend to it with his mother's help in hopes of it recovering, but it didn't. It succumbed to the disease. In adulthood, William Jr. is that rosebush. Will he also succumb to his disease? Only time will tell. Their second-born kid was a girl. William asked Daisy what she wished to name her, and she sweetly replied, Pepper, because her eyes remind me of bell peppers. Pepper's drawing is of a crown because she will have great power in her adulthood. Their third kid was also a girl, but she was born deceased. She was covered in amniotic fluid, which gave her a yellow color. William was furious. Daisy started to cry and quietly said that she wanted to name her Anna because of her banana-like coloring. He scoffed and asked her why she bothered to name a carcass. She tried to say something in protest, but then he threw the lifeless body onto the floor with a considerable force, making Daisy flinch. He yelled at Daisy, calling her a defective female, a good-for-nothing rabbit that exists only to carry his children, and she couldn't even do that right, and that it was better if she got carried off and killed by a hawk before he ever met her, and many other unsavory things. I drew a banana to represent Anna. He was still yelling at her when she gave birth to their fourth kid, a boy, the only one of the litter to look bunny-like. William pulled the head of the boy aggressively, but his paw slipped, clawing the kid's eyes in the process. His left eye. William held up the boy with his face covered in blood and yelled, "Look what you made me do." William quickly got to work on patching the eye of the boy. The eye was not salvageable, unfortunately. He will forever not have his left eye. Daisy attempted to apologize, but William told her to shut up. He put the kit on one of Daisy's nipples and asked her what she wanted to name the deformed one. She choked out Frost, because he looks like he's covered in white frosting. Frost loves sweets, especially cookies. I drew a cake to represent him. He also really loves chocolate cake. William let out a breath. He was still angry, but had calmed down significantly. His thought process was that he must not have Daisy be hysterical to make sure his son, he doesn't give a fuck about his daughters, the non-deformed one, receives the best care possible. So he apologized to Daisy for giving birth to faulty children and making him angry. He told her that it wasn't her fault she was faulty equipment. He assured her that he still loved her despite it. He then went out, built a fire, and burned Anna's body. Daisy watched from the window. William wanted as many kids as possible, and Daisy wanted whatever William wanted. She was allowed a few months' break from pregnancy between the litters, but this would mean they could no longer have penis-to-vagina sex anymore. So, to prevent pregnancy and to make sure William still received pleasure, he made Daisy give him oral daily, even if she didn't want to. The kids were weaned at 2 months of age. Daisy was serving fruit bowls for the kids, and William demanded to know what she was doing. She was confused. Her confusion only made him more angry. He threw the ceramic bowls onto the floor. They all broke. He hit her across the face several times, then told her to never feed anything but animal products to his kids, and to never ever disrespect him again. The scene happened in front of the kids. This wouldn't be the last time the topic of their kids' diets would come up. Daisy continued to insist that since the kids were half carnivore and half herbivore, the kids should eat a balanced diet to ensure they were in proper health. William would remind her that he was a doctor and that he knew better than a dumb rabbit. Every time he caught Daisy feeding plant products to the kids, he would beat her. But for the sake of her children's health, she continued to feed them plants in secret. A week after not being caught, out of guilt for disrespecting her husband, Daisy would admit to William that she had fed the kids plants and begged for forgiveness, but it would only lead to her being beat again. She promised to not feed plants to them again, but she didn't keep the promise. A day later, she admitted she fed plants again to them and begged William for forgiveness, but he beat her again. And after the beating, he destroyed all the edible plants in her garden and got rid of all the plant-based food in the house. From then on, he said that Daisy was to not only feed solely animal products to her children, but to eat only animal products herself. She refused, which led to him shoving meat down her throat. The meat made Daisy really sick. She nearly died. And after that, William finally allowed plants back into the diet of his wife and his kids. 3 months after the kids were weaned, Daisy gave birth, with William's assistance, of course, to a litter of 4 kids. Daisy named their 5th born a girl, Lavender, for her lavender-colored fur. Lavender is a very violent fox who loves guns, so I drew a handgun for her. Their 6th born kid was named Stella by her mother because she reminded Daisy of the night sky. I drew the Statue of Liberty for Stella because she has a strong sense of justice. Their 7th born was another girl. Daisy named her Vanilla because her coat's color is the same as a vanilla flower. This is personally my favorite kid. Let me know in the comments what yours is. I drew an angel for Vanilla because she is a very kind and pure soul. Their 8th born kid is a boy. Daisy contemplated for a moment on his name, then finally decided on the name Rust because of his rust-colored fur. William looked visibly irritated and asked what kind of name was that. Then he said no son of his would have some hogwash name like that, and that Henry would be his name. Daisy quickly said that she loved the name Henry and that it suited him very well. William added that no more of their children would have nonsensical names, and from now on they would have proper British names. Daisy loved giving her children so-called nonsensical names, so she was saddened by this, but she wouldn't dare speak up and risk upsetting her husband, especially knowing that it would lead to a beating. I drew a jester's hat for Henry because he's a goofy fox that loves and is quite good at making others laugh. Well, that's the end of this moving picture. If you want to see more content from me, subscribe and turn on notifications to the channel. I hope that your celestial travels are of the utmost favorable, and may the space dust shine ever brighter for you and those dearest to you. Farewell, and may we meet again, my dear earthlings.